Welcome back. So, we need to revisit Rich Paul's recent comments because now Kendrick Perkins, a longtime friend of Paul's, has come out and responded to what was said. For those who missed it, Rich Paul made the claim that Scottie Pippen was the most impactful Chicago Bull during their dynasty years, the 2 three-peats, 6 championships total. A run that, by virtually every historical account, was built around and defined by Michael Jordan. And that's exactly why Paul's comments have landed the way they have. This isn't the first time Rich Paul has pushed a narrative that takes shots at Jordan's legacy, and at this point, a lot of basketball fans have started to tune it out, or at minimum, take it with a serious grain of salt. The perception out there is pretty straightforward. People see it as a calculated effort to chip away at Jordan's legacy in order to elevate LeBron James, and the pushback from fans has been consistent. If LeBron's body of work is as great as you believe it to be, let it stand on its own merit. You don't need to diminish what Michael Jordan built to make your argument. Now here's where it gets interesting. Kendrick Perkins, who has never hidden the fact that he believes LeBron is the greatest of all time, is not exactly someone you'd expect to push back on anything coming from the LeBron camp. But even he felt the need to respond to what Rich Paul said. Let's hear what Perk had to say.
Right, they're just not, right? Scottie Pippen rings, those 6, they're not the same as Michael Jordan's. Right. They're not the same as LeBron James.
But they're pretty good.
But they're good. They're good. If there's some sidekick rings, if there's some sidekick rings,
I think Scottie's rings are just the same as Michael Jordan's. Why not?
Because he won the best player on the team.
Yeah, but he was the most impactful player on the team.
I get it.
What do you mean he wasn't?
Listen, I get it.
If you unplug Scottie Pippen off that team,
Sure.
Jordan's 0 for 6.
Sure,
could be.
Who knows? But if you
could be.
But if you
I know
replace
who
Scottie,
knows.
but replace Scottie Pippen with another All-Star. No one does it without another All-Star.
Bounce out. All he sees is the action.
Sure.
He doesn't see if anything.
Well, those are
happens.
veteran moves. I'll just point out that you know who didn't have to do that? Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant. They didn't have to do that.
They did.
But they did here and there, but it wasn't like an epidemic. Like the difference is. The difference is their first priority is to score. Mm-hmm. And then if they get the call, great. But it flipped, I think, with Harden, and now with SGA, where it's like, I'm going to get the call,
but it wasn't,
and if I score, great.
But it wasn't as many voices. It wasn't many people voicing their opinion on these things when those guys played. They sold calls, there's no question.
Yeah, it was individually.
And a lot of people feel exactly the way Kendrick Perkins does about this pattern. It didn't start with the Scottie Pippen comment. Before that, Rich Paul was out there claiming Michael Jordan couldn't sell his own sneakers, suggesting it was Martin Lawrence wearing them on his sitcom, Will Smith rocking them on Fresh Prince, and Street Culture adopting the shoe that built the Air Jordan brand. Not Jordan's dominance on the court, not his competitive greatness or his marketability. According to that narrative, Jordan was essentially along for the ride on his own legacy. And that's the through line people keep pointing to, a consistent effort to peel away at what Jordan built, piece by piece, while simultaneously lifting LeBron's standing. That's what's rubbing people the wrong way. Now, Kendrick Perkins, who was actually on the show with Rich Paul, made the point that none of these comments are coming directly from LeBron. And that may be true, but in the court of public opinion, it doesn't really matter. When Rich Paul says something, it gets attributed to the camp. People assume these things have been discussed, that there's an alignment there. And LeBron hasn't exactly been rushing to put out those fires either. He went on his own podcast after winning the Cleveland championship and said that title made him the GOAT. So he's not exactly distancing himself from the conversation. Rich Paul at this point looks like an extension of narratives that LeBron has introduced and allowed to breathe in the media. And some of the context behind all of this goes back further than people realize. LeBron came into the league being compared to Jordan from day one. He wore number 23. The expectations were Jordan-esque from the jump. And for a while, he was tracking ahead of schedule. That early finals run against San Antonio, people were genuinely saying he was ahead of where Jordan was at the same age. But then came the Miami move. A lot of fans viewed that as taking the easy road. And then losing to Dallas the way he did, putting up the finals performance he did in 2011, that's where the narrative machine really kicked into gear. That's when it felt like the conversation shifted from let the career speak for itself to something more constructed. People are tired of it now. And what makes this moment notable is that someone like Kendrick Perkins, a guy who genuinely believes LeBron is the greatest, is the one calling it out. That says something. As for Rich Paul's podcast more broadly, there are real issues beyond just the Jordan takes. He's been publicly commenting on Luka Doncic. He weighed in on Austin Reeves' contract, a player repped by a different agent, a teammate of LeBron's. That's the kind of thing that raises eyebrows in league circles. There are certain topics that agents traditionally stay away from, and for good reason. Commenting on other agents' clients crosses a line that most people in that business respect. The Jordan stuff might actually be the least of it. At least Jordan isn't active and it's a historical debate. But it does illustrate a broader pattern with how this platform is being used. Because slowly and steadily, the podcast has started to feel less like genuine basketball conversation and more like a vehicle for a specific agenda, building the case for LeBron's greatness at the expense of everyone else's. Here's the thing though, enough people already believe LeBron is the greatest. That argument has real support, but this relentless push to make everyone agree, to leave no room for a different view, that's where it loses people. Opinions on the GOAT debate are always going to vary, and that's completely fine. Some people will always see Jordan, some will always see LeBron. Both positions have merit, and neither side needs to tear down the other to make its case. But it's almost like the goal is to get every single person on board, and that's simply not how this works. That's an impossible standard, and chasing it is only going to generate more resistance. Because when you sit there and criticize Michael Jordan while pretending it's coming from a place of pure objectivity, with no bias, no agenda, people see right through it. And at this point, a lot of them aren't even engaging anymore. They're just laughing it off. It's lost credibility. So if Rich Paul genuinely cares about LeBron's legacy and how history remembers him, the smartest move he could make right now is to stop talking about Michael Jordan entirely. People fully expect him to advocate for LeBron. That's his guy, that's understandable. But the moment you start tearing down Jordan to build LeBron up, you're actually doing the opposite of what you intend. You're making Jordan look better by comparison, because nobody from the Jordan camp is out here running the same playbook. There's no one on that side taking regular shots at LeBron to elevate Michael. The one-sidedness is impossible to miss. There was a piece, Jordan's former agent, if I remember correctly, that came out roughly 2 years ago, touching on LeBron's Miami decision, the super team era, all of that. It clearly struck a nerve with Rich Paul at the time, but honestly, that felt more like a reaction to everything Paul and LeBron had already been putting out there. It wasn't unprovoked. At this point, the track record speaks for itself. First, it was Jordan couldn't sell his own sneakers. Now it's Scottie Pippen was the more impactful bull. Nobody actually believes that. Not seriously. Basketball has always been built around a franchise cornerstone, and then you construct everything else around that centerpiece. The entire Bulls dynasty was engineered around Michael Jordan. Saying he went 0 for 6 in finals appearances without Pippen misunderstands how the sport works, because you could flip that same logic in multiple directions. Remove Pippen from the equation, maybe Jordan never gets the right supporting cast and never reaches 6 finals. But then look at it another way. What if Len Bias hadn't died? What if Reggie Lewis had lived? Suddenly, the Eastern Conference landscape looks completely different, and maybe Jordan faces real competition coming out of the East for years. There's a version of history where he reaches fewer finals. There's also a version where he gets even more support and wins more titles. The what-ifs cut every direction. The point is, the argument doesn't hold up under scrutiny, and people know it. Anyway, that's all I've got on this one. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear where you stand on all of this. And if you haven't already, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, peace.